Peace everyone, Unmask Art here. Welcome back to the colored pencil tutorial. Hope everyone is having a lovely week. I'm going to be picking right back up where I left off last week, which was layering down the 1063 color for the base layer of pretty much all of the paint for the entire car. Hey there, Cece, Tom, Dottie, Barbara, Greg, Diane, Blair. Good to see all of you lovely people. Anyways, like I said, just going to jump right back into it as usual. Any questions, always welcome. We're actually having some pretty good weather today. Shockingly, it's probably like the warmest it's been in the past couple weeks. Probably the last nice day for the year. If I had to put money on it. Not going to see too many of these for a while. So I'm just going to continue working around all of my line art here, getting a good base layer put down. So nothing different, nothing complex, just time consuming. That's pretty much the nature of colored pencils. That part right there is actually more black, so I'm going to stop right here with the paint. Don't want to get lost in some of the trickier line art. I want to keep things as precise as you possibly can. Depending on the size in which you're drawing your car, it makes it even more difficult. The paper size I'm working on is 11 by 14, which is pretty much the only paper size that I work with colored pencils. I don't go any smaller than this ever, and I have gone bigger a couple times, but I never go smaller. Not anymore. I used to, but not anymore. Oh, hey there, Cherry. Yeah, laying down this base base colors is a nice break from working on bricks from the pastel project. Looks like some kind of, I don't know, maybe some kind of air cooler, possibly. Maybe this car is turboed or something, but sticking out of the hood right here. It's very, very similar in shade as the paint, but I'm gonna keep it isolated and put it in later. And so I'm just going to ignore that little thing sticking out of the hood. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but it looks like some kind of air intake. I really don't know a whole lot about these particular cars, so. But it certainly doesn't look original. It looks pretty custom. Oh, good morning, Ozzy. Oh, that weather sounds real nice. I'll be honest, I've been thinking about moving back to the United States and maybe getting in on some of those warmer areas down south. A lot of people seem to be moving to Texas and Florida these days. Can't say I haven't thought about jumping on that bandwagon. Let's see here. There's some random shapes that cut through the highlights here, so just try to get them the best that you can. I mean, they are truly random in the sense that if the car was moved just the smallest bit to the left, these shapes would change immediately. So getting them exactly like what they look like in the reference isn't paramount because these are like these are actually the shadow from a tree. You can see like the tree branch kind of down in this area a little bit more. So you can imagine that as long as it sort of resembles what it represents, uh, it will be okay. So don't stress too much about exactly what the details in that highlight look like. Focus on the primary reflective shapes, which the line art represents, by the way. Yeah, it's kind of funny that you bring that up of retiring someplace warmer because I was just thinking about it today. I was just thinking about um, like a central part of the U.S. where it has maybe like 6 months of warm weather. I don't want to forego winter completely because I still very much love winter. If I could just live someplace that has 4 seasons and maybe just a bit higher average temperature, because I feel like for the past, oh my goodness, like 15 years almost, I've lived in I lived in places that have such short summers because I lived in Seattle for 9 years. And, well, if you don't know anything about Seattle, the summers are like 2 months, and it's magnificent weather. It really is. Like for those 2 months of summer, it's it's superb for sure, no doubt. There's sort of this saying that the 2 months of summer make up for the 10 months of just awful weather. I disagree. It doesn't. But I'd love to get like just even 3 months. I'd be happy with 3 months of really nice weather. I had a student in Spain, a couple of them actually. I had private lessons with a couple couple people in the south of Spain. I've always wanted to go. Spain is just one of those countries you just gotta see once in your life. I'll have my Polish driver's license before too long, so I'll be able to utilize my residency card and my driver's license to just drive across Europe. Just go wherever I want. That'll be a fun time. Yeah, sometimes I forget how like long Florida is. Sorry. The weather like down on the southern tip of Florida is, I imagine, quite different than northern Florida or even central Florida. All of this part down here is also the same gray. So I'll start filling this in. And then I'll probably start on layer two. Because like I said, I'm going to keep all of this side that is sort of off camera. I'm going to keep that till later because there's a more than one color happening pretty much every pencil stroke. So I'll tackle that later. The front of the car is really in focus anyway, and so you can kind of think of the headlights as being the eyes of this car portrait. So you sort of want to keep your focus up at the front for the most part. Make sure you get those details and everything put in really nicely. Nice solid layers. Getting the paper covered. I mean, that's like 9/10 of the struggle with colored pencils. Really, is just getting the paper covered. If you're going for that really clean look, covering the paper is the hardest part. Really, just takes the most time, and it's can be frustrating. Can cause you to lose your patience and make a mistake. Very, very easy to do that. Anybody have any questions for me today? I must just be that good at teaching that you guys never have any questions. Must just keep all of your questions answered preemptively. Gonna have to change my YouTube name to The Psychic Artist. I imagine I imagine a number of you are probably actually working on the pastel project, trying to get all those bricks and windows put in. I was actually working on a new video this morning. Was started editing about, I don't know, hour and a half ago or so. So I'll probably have that video done sometime tomorrow. So it's a difficult video to work through. I don't know. I spent like a week and a half writing it and shot the last little bit of footage this morning. So I've been pretty busy all morning actually. Live stream snuck up on me. I didn't even realize what time it was. I haven't eaten any lunch yet. But fortunately enough, just filling in this color isn't too physically demanding. So I got more than enough energy to get through today's live stream. All right, I'm gonna give this pencil a sharpen, and I'm gonna start adding a second layer to the part that we did last week. Oh, thank you, Arsenal. I appreciate that. Yeah, you guys gotta, I got my silver play button finally after like a year, and I need to get the gold one now. You guys gotta help me get the gold play button. Gotta help me get my channel to 1 million subscribers. Gotta start sharing all those videos that you like. I gotta start making more videos. Working on this sponsored video that I was mentioning a moment ago. The one that I was editing today and recording some more footage for. Been working on this one for a while. So once I get that done, I'll be back to writing up some more mini tutorials and some time lapses once I finish some more projects here. Got a pastel project that it's going to take still quite a bit of time to finish, and then this car project here is going to take some time to finish, but I've been recording the process to make a nice little time lapse later on. Oh yeah, for sure. tediousness in both the colored pencil and pastel project, Diane, is good time to listen to some good music. I mean, you guys don't realize this, but I listen to music when I'm doing these live streams. I just have headphones in. It took me it took me a while to get used to talking with headphones on and listening to something other than what I'm talking about. But it helps me stay focused now to have a little bit of music in my ear. Just it's I keep it quiet, so it's sort of just background noise for me. I'm not much of a fan of listening to myself talk in a room of silence, so that's something I changed up a while ago. But I'm listening to the Cities album by Amberlin. If you've never listened to Amberlin, you're missing out. I grew up listening to him. Like one of my favorite bands of all time for sure. From when I was in high school time frame. Usually, usually I'm listening to stuff that's a bit less friendly to people's ears, because mostly I listen to metal. But I've been on an Amberlin kick the past week or so. I always love it when I sort of rediscover a band that I haven't listened to in years or whatnot. Forgot how good their music was to some degree. I never really forgot, but it's crazy how much I still remember from lyrics and stuff. I guess it just goes to show you how much I've listened to this album. I remember when this album Cities came out, and I just listened to it over and over and over and over again. I always I don't know if you guys tend to do that, but when I come across a song or a band or a record or anything that I just really really enjoy, I basically listen to it until I just can't stand listening to it anymore. I sort of self sabotage the good music because I just make myself sick of listening to it. I tend to do the same thing with food as well. Like when I find a really good recipe for something and I fine tune it and then I eat it for like 3 weeks straight to the point that the smell of it just makes me want to gag. And then I don't eat it for like 4 months. Oh, your son's in a metal band? That's cool. Yeah, I was in a metal band um, back in high school, and we actually played in the my hometown's battle of the bands and took first place. We were called Pariah, which is kind of a cheesy metal band name, but I played guitar. Like that's what my main instrument up to joining that band was, but actually I played keyboard. I played keyboard in the band. I wanted to play guitar but the lead guitarist had a bit of a um, what's the word I'm looking for? He was a bit self-conscious because everybody, including himself, knew I was a much better guitar player than he was. Uh, and so he didn't want me to play guitar because he didn't want me to like outshine him. So, and they really wanted a keyboardist anyway, and so I spent no joke. I spent like a month learning to play keyboard before I played keyboard in that band. Basically, I just like translated things I would play on guitar to keyboard, and so I was still able to. I knew enough, like reading music, and had a little bit of a decent understanding of music theory and transcribing in order to write stuff on guitar and then just play it on keyboard. Okie dokie, I think that's a pretty good layer. So what I'm going to do is grab my solvent. I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss any spots. Oh, actually there is. There's a tiny little corner right here. This part here is tough. Um, that outer edge, I'm going to do the edge once I sharpen the pencil, if I don't forget to do that. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and blend this out. So the coming plans for this drawing here, once you have the foundation really well laid down, it's when we'll start incorporating the different values that occur in the paint, both the highlights and the shadows. And so we'll start darkening the dark parts and lightening the light parts and transitioning all of those gradients to make the car look smooth and shiny. And we'll leave everything that's white on the hood right now is all of those pure white highlights. So we'll just avoid those at all cost. We want to try to keep our edges as sharp as we possibly can. That's sort of the important feature, to make those highlights kind of pop off the paper, having those really crispy edges. And you'll just want to use your paintbrush and solvent to help you get those crispy edges. Nice clean edges. And once we start adding the shadows and everything, creating the form of the car, that's when it will really start to look three-dimensional. Because right now it looks kind of flat, right? Very flat paint job. But at least it helps us get the paper covered really well. Because that's honestly the hardest part. You know what I thought about yesterday? Well, I mean, of course you don't, but I'm going to tell you. Um, I was thinking about the fact that Stabilo Carbothello needs to sponsor me, like right now. Because we were doing the pastel project, and it didn't occur to me in the moment, but I think yesterday during the stream, like three people asked me what pencils I was using. And of course, anytime somebody asks me what I'm using, I always tell them and then explain why I'm using that specific supply as opposed to something different. Uh, for instance, like the Carbothellos, as opposed to the Caran Dash. And later that day, after I'd finished streaming, I think I was doing the dishes or something. I don't remember what I was doing, but I was thinking, I was like, I was trying to imagine how many people I have personally convinced to buy Carbothello pencils. And I thought about it, I was like, if Carbothellos, they're about like $100 for the full set. Generally, they're less, but I'm just sort of rounding for the simplicity of calculation. And I was like, for sure, for sure, I've gotten at least 1,000 people to buy the full set of Carbothellos, like no doubt. And then I thought, why am I still paying for my pencils? I guarantee I've probably made Carbothello like $1 million by now over the years of using their product and recommending it to like every single person that ever talks to me about pastel pencils. And I even have that review I did. And I don't know, once a week at least I get one person saying that they're buying Carbothellos. And I was thinking, I was like, I need to get the email for Carbothello for Stabilo because it's about time I cashed in my worth to that company, you know what I mean? Because um I don't know, some of you may remember, but a few months ago I ordered some uh supplies from Jackson's Art Supply, and because of Brexit and all that nonsense, everything was stopped at customs and I never saw the package. Well, last week it finally was returned. So it took like 4 days to get to Poland from UK, and then it sat here for like 2 months before it finally got back to Jackson's. And they made some changes to their shipping and whatever, so I should be able to order stuff from Jackson's again and get it without being harassed by customs. And they told me that, so I they asked me if I wanted them to try to send the package back because I already paid for it. I didn't get my money back or anything yet. And so I said, yeah, go ahead and send it if you think that it will get to me. So I'm waiting for it to come in the mail. And you know what it is? it's another full set of Carbothellos with some replacement black and white Carbothello. So it's Carbothello supplies. And so that email saying that they were sending it and all that stuff floating in my subconscious, I just realized I was like, why am I still paying for these pencils? There's just like, there's no reason for it. It's just no reason for it. How do we get that done? Yeah, I gotta send them a bunch of clips or something. I don't know. I'm just I gotta find an email. I gotta find an email first. They need to like they need to sponsor my channel, my tutorials and everything. And you know the other reason that I was thinking about it is because I'd love to be able to give stuff away as well. Because you guys remember when I was talking about we were talking about the idea of doing a art competition next year. Well, I was thinking more about that actually, and if I could get Carbothello to make the right decision and sponsor me before I switch and start using Faber Castell, um, then maybe I could get them to donate a couple packs of Carbothellos to give away as prizes, and who knows what else. So that's I was thinking of it in the least selfish way possible. I was actually thinking about it so that I could give stuff away to you guys. So, okay. Thank you, Diane. Yeah, I'll contact him after this stream. I do want to do an art competition next year. I don't know what the time frame will be, but pretty confident to say that I will put one together. And I think I might even have cash prize for like maybe first through third or something like that. I'll try to organize with some other companies or whatever that I can try to contact and see if I can't get some kind of sponsor for an art competition. I think it'd be really cool. Well, currently I am supplying a I think a relatively substantial service to Stabilo, but I have not received anything from them. I, of course, partially may be my fault for never asking, but it didn't really occur to me until yesterday that I need to start demanding. I think asking might be too I think it might be way past asking. Okie dokie. So that layer is blended out. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and sharpen this pencil. And you know what? Have the 1065 pencil handy because it's time to start putting in a little bit of variation for the values. And I would also say the 1067. So we're going to start using these three colors. That's the 1067, the 1065, and the 1063 that we've just been working with. So I'm going to sharpen these pencils, make sure they're ready to go, and be right back. Okie dokie. Pencils are nice and sharp. Now, it's sometimes an overlooked feature of importance having, really nice sharp pencils. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that dog barking, but it sounds like my neighbor's taking their dog out. Um, anyways, sorry, distracted. Uh, when you have a lot of layers or a thick layer of the colored pencil on the paper already, you have to remember that the more pencil you try to add to it, the less it will stick. It doesn't like to stick as much. And having a sharp pencil actually helps it stick. Because you want to think of it like sanding, because essentially what you're doing as applying when you're applying your colored pencils to the paper when it's blank has a lot of tooth to it. There's a lot of space, a lot of gaps for the pencil to sort of stick to and adhere to the paper. And as you apply a layer of colored pencil, you start filling that tooth in, and it's sort of like sanding the paper smoother. So the smoother something gets, the less likely something is to stick to it. And so you can kind of think of sharpening or having a sharp pencil as being like a higher grit sandpaper. You're still going to see result, like you're still going to see something show up. Sorry, maybe that's not the best analogy, but I think it works well enough. Okie dokie. So this should be dry. I'm going to use the 1065 and just start breaking it up into shapes. So I'll start with this little one here. One thing to notice is that the right side is darker than the left side. So I'm just going to start over here on the right side and begin darkening this shape. And what you want to pay attention to is where the gradient points to. So the the separation, it cuts through here because that's the way the metal is curved. So you want to make sure that as you're applying your new color and darkening part of it, you want that gradient to follow the actual shape of the car. And here it's over on the right side, and it sort of follows this direction. sort of like that. And for those of you that are changing the color of your car, this is when you would incorporate those other colors that you've experimented with to make the color adjustment. So if you're doing red, this would be your slightly darker red color. And I'm just going to start with this color here. I'm not going to incorporate the really dark one just yet. Now I'll jump to this shape here. So just do one shape at a time. Or actually, there's this little triangle right here is actually darker. So I'll just go jump back there and darken that really quick. All right, now let's look at this shape. So the first thing, the fender flare here, it's on the side, and the whole thing is darker than the rest of the paint. So I'm just going to fill this in and darken the whole thing. And then it tapers as it comes up here, because when it tapers, it sort of transitions into the other curve of the fender there. So just sort of fill in this little side part. Oh, thank you, art class, for easy. Appreciate that. What do I do with my pencils when they're too short to sharpen? I have sharpened my pencils down to the point that it is nothing but the core of the pencil itself. Um, when it gets too short for it to fit in my pencil sharpener, I use a blade to sharpen it. Actually, I think I have, yeah. So this is black pencil here. As you can see, when I sharpen it with a blade, I cut the wood back really far, and the pencil stops right here. So it's still pretty decent length of a pencil, but you use these pencil extenders to give you something to grip onto, and then you can sharpen it. And you can sharpen it down to that size if you really wanted to. I I don't know if I get it down to that size anymore. Maybe 5 years ago I would have went through all that trouble, but I get it down to the point that it's it stops being easy to sharpen with a blade, and then I just toss it, get a replacement. By the way, you can always use this slightly darker color to kind of sketch the shape of your gradients that you're creating. If you just use a really light touch, it won't, you'll be able to hide it really easily. Is there a guide using a marker for underdrawing? Um, I don't personally have a guide for that. Uh, Using markers for underpaintings of colored pencils is really, really great. And I would do that more often if it weren't for the fact that I'm trying to keep my colored pencil tutorials sort of purely colored pencil for the sake of people being able to follow without having to buy extra supplies. But to break it down in the easiest way I can, it really doesn't matter how you do it. The two big factors when using markers as an underpainting, specifically an underpainting for colored pencils, is your paper choice. I highly recommend the Strathmore Bristol plate paper if you're going to be using markers for an underpainting in colored pencils. That's going to give you the best results, in my opinion, because that paper works really, really well with markers and ink. The thing with markers and ink is if you use other papers, like for instance, if I were to use this paper here, this is a vellum paper, the Lennox 100. This paper is a bit thicker and a bit more absorptive because it has texture to it. And when you apply markers to this paper, you're going to get feathering. And feathering is like if I were to take a marker, pretend this is a marker, and I draw a line, the outside edge, the outside band of which I color will bleed into the paper and it'll be fuzzy. That's feathering. And you don't want that, obviously, because then you won't be able to get crisp lines. Well, with the uh, Bristol papers, in particular, the Bristol plate paper, it's a much smoother paper, and it's not as thick, so it's not as, it doesn't have as much weight to it, but it's still quite dense. So it's still really high quality paper, and the ink won't feather that way on such paper, and that's going to give you really good underpaintings with clean edges, which is what you want. The other thing, the other factor with using markers for underpainting is that you want to make sure that you don't go to a darker value with your marker than what your lightest color is going to be for your colored pencils on top. It's okay to go the same value, and it's okay to go maybe a little bit darker, but you want to be careful with that. But colored pencils, they lay on top of markers just amazingly well, fantastically well. And you can go from a dark marker color to a bright colored pencil color uh, quite well. If you want to get some good practice with using markers as an underpainting or just a base layer for your colored pencils, start with just gray tones. Use gray tones to establish your values and the value changes in whatever subject you're working on, and then put your color on top of that, and you'll immediately notice the difference that it makes. Because once you use the markers to hide the white of the paper, you'll find that your colored pencils have seemingly a magical boost uh, in vibrancy. Yeah, the marker layer really makes the colors just shine with colored pencils. Sorry, I was explaining that for a really long time. Let's see, did I miss any other questions? Yeah, that's also a possibility, Diane. I wouldn't recommend super gluing your pencil to the end of another pencil. Go to any hardware store and find those wooden dowel sticks. Super glue it to that instead. You can get dowel sticks that are like the same diameter of Prismacolor, and then super glue it to that, and you can still use your sharpener. But again, that does require buying more stuff, which I try not to do. I've been a little bit um, frivolous the past couple months. Amazon has become way too common of a website that I go to. I need to I need to chill out a little bit. I was doing really good for like the past year and a half because I went like 16 months without buying any art supplies or anything, which was like a huge uh, thing for me because I think what year was that? I want to say 2019, but I think it might have been 2018. Can't quite remember. No, it has to be 2019. I think 2019 I spent like $12,000 on art supplies. uh, which I know because I have to file my taxes and um, of course everything is an expense when you do it for a living, so I'm gonna know exactly how much I spent on art supplies. But that was definitely the most costly year for art supplies. But it was unnecessarily costly. I think that was the same year that I bought um, like two sets of Copic markers and all of the pastel pencils, like the Caran d'Ache and Derwent and all of that. I think I bought a couple sets of pastels, soft pastels as well. Yes, I am using Prismacolor. Um, Vishva. I'm using Prismacolor colored pencils. They are the pencils that I always recommend to anybody that wants to get into colored pencils. I know that depending on where you're located in the world, um, which if I had to guess, I'd say India, um, Prismacolor prices can sometimes appear expensive. When it comes to like a beginner, they're really if Polychromos is cheaper in your area than Prismacolor, then I'd say go with Polychromos. But they're really just the best all around pencil for beginners, and the reason it's the reason I use them in all of my tutorials. I all but stopped using any other colored pencil because generally the availability of Prismacolor is very good worldwide, with few exceptions. Oh, thank you, Sketch. How has an hour passed already? That's crazy. Notice that a majority of this center part of the hood is actually darker, and then it fades. It lightens up right up here towards the front. I'll get this layer done with this color, and then I'll blend this stuff out one more time, and then I think I'll leave the darker tones for tomorrow. Just use a really light pressure during this process. Let the color build up slowly. You'll have a lot more control that way. Oh, thank you, Luciano. I'll be honest, I have no idea where Mozambique is located. Mozambique. Hmm. That that is a place that in my mind could be anywhere on the planet. Really have no idea. The QUE sort of makes me think of France for whatever reason. I don't know. That's a thing. What is the difference between charcoal and pastel? Well, the biggest difference is probably what they're made out of. Charcoal is charcoal. Pastel is going to be made out of a pigment, a colored pigment that is then held together with some kind of binder. And the way those two mediums work is actually very similar. However, charcoal has a bit more versatility in paper choice, I'd say. Uh, and then also, charcoal is a lot better in terms of using a fixative to preserve the artwork. So with charcoal, you can spray charcoal after you're done with a charcoal piece. With a fixative, with just about any fixative for that matter. Whereas you can't with pastel. Pastel, you can use a fixative, but I don't, and I never recommend it because it's going to change the color drastically. And you need, because of the different ingredients that exist with pastel medium, you can't just use any. You can't really get away with just trying any fixative because different ingredients can interact with the medium differently. Whereas charcoal, I mean, you can use your sister's hairspray to preserve charcoal. Um, I'm not joking, by the way. Um, but that's really the biggest difference is just what it's made out of. But they act very similar. The application, the blending, it's like a one for one crossover between the two. But they are made from very different material. They'll transfer on paper a little bit different. Pastel tends to be a bit creamier. Southern Africa. Oh wow. Yeah, I would have. I I don't think I would have guessed Africa for some time. Am I doing Inktober? I am not. I am not doing Inktober. I don't know if I'll ever do Inktober again. I didn't really have any time this year to even consider it, um, but can't say that I won't ever do it again. but I did it 3 years in a row, and then I just decided not to do it anymore. Now, when it comes to blending this layer and every layer moving forward, for this part in particular, you're going to use less and less solvent because it's going to take less and less solvent to move the pigment on the paper. And fair warning, at this stage, the colored pencil is getting quite heavy on the paper. And if you use too much solvent, you'll actually wipe the pencil off of the paper, leaving a bald spot on the paper. And that bald spot will be so smooth from all of the binder and pigment squeezing into every tiny little part of the paper that you will not be able to reapply color to it. So it will be a permanent bald spot on your paper and you cannot fix it. So, my rule with blending with solvent is very similar to my rule about using colored pencils. And that is to never use more solvent than what is necessary to blend the pencil. And sometimes you get to a stage in layering your colored pencils that you don't even have to use solvent anymore. You can just use your brush dry after it wiping off all the solvent with like a tissue or whatnot. You can still keep blending colored pencil with a dry brush. It's always better to use less solvent though. It just gives you more control and you're a lot less likely to wipe away your colored pencil, leaving that really nasty looking bald spot that you cannot correct. Just keep that in mind. Is Halloween celebrated in Poland? Um, it kind of is. I swear somebody asked this like 3 days ago or last week. Um, it kind of is. It's not really. It's not like a recognized holiday, but trick or treating tried like they try to do some trick or treating here. But I would say a majority of people don't. A vast majority of people just probably don't even know Halloween at all. I get questions like that quite often because American holidays. Like I've had people ask me if we celebrate 4th of July in Poland. It's like, do you know what 4th of July is? Celebrating America's independence. Why would Poland celebrate that? But I swear I've gotten that question only one time if Poland celebrates 4th of July, but um, Valentine's Day, that's another one that it sort of exists, but not really. Like you don't go to the store. Like you go to the big stores in the U.S. Um, around late February. Um, I mean sometimes like early January or something. Did I say late February? I meant late January. Um, And you see just like a bunch of those heart-shaped box candies and Valentine stuff everywhere. You don't see this stuff here. You go to the store, you see the same nonsense you see every year. Now that I think about it, you don't even really see like Christmas stuff the way that you do in the United States here. And Christmas is a relatively big holiday here. I mean, it's celebrated for 3 days straight, so I'd say Christmas is a little bit bigger of a deal here than it is in the US. Poland is a Catholic country after all, so you know, it's a little bit bigger deal, I'd say. Um, what other holiday? Sometimes I sometimes I overlook those government holidays like Labor Day and stuff. Yeah, every once in a while I'll get somebody mentioning Labor Day or something, and yeah, we have a Labor Day here in Poland, but it's not the same day, and it's not called Labor Day. I think it's called like Workers' Day or something. I think my favorite Polish holiday is Fat Tuesday. That's where that's where I make donuts, and my wife and I eat donuts for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for like 3 days straight. It's basically a national donut day. Pączki. Pączki is donuts in Polish. That's a holiday America probably should just leave to the rest of the world. Okie dokie, almost done here. Just got this last little section at the bottom, and then I'm going to call it a day. But I will be back tomorrow, same time, um, doing the same exact thing. Getting this nice and smooth. There's no fast way of doing it. So it just takes a lot of time, and tomorrow just focus on getting these gradients nice and smooth. Get some of those darker colors put in on the paint, and the highlights as well. So that will be the plan for tomorrow. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's live stream. I always enjoy the conversation and your company. And that is going to do it for now. So I'll be back tomorrow, same time. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Peace.